In 2015, the United Nations member states have adopted the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development as a shared blueprint for peace and prosperity. At its heart are the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, also known as SDGs, which are an urgent call for action by all countries in the global partnership. They recognize that ending poverty and other deprivations must go hand in hand with strategies that improve health and education, reduce inequality, and spur economic growth, all while tackling climate change and working to preserve our oceans and forests. In September 2019, the UN Secretary General called on all sectors of society to mobilize for a decade of action on 3 levels. Firstly, global action to secure greater leadership, more resources, and smarter solutions for the SDGs. Secondly, local action embedding the needed transitions in the policies, budgets, institutions, and regulatory frameworks of authorities. And lastly, people action, inclusive of youth, civil society, private sector, academia, and other society groups. All this to generate an unstoppable movement pushing for the required transformations. Alright, now let's zoom into SDG 11 Sustainable Cities and Communities. Cities are hubs for ideas, commerce, culture, science, productivity, social and economic development. Urban planning, transport systems, waste management, sanitation, access to information, and education are among the relevant issues to sustainable urban development. Given the importance of this topic to global development efforts, recent movements pushing to address sustainable development from an urban perspective have taken place throughout the whole world. Results from this movement can be seen in the inclusion of a standalone goal on cities and urban development in the 2030 Agenda, that is Sustainable Development Goal 11, to make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. And here are the Goal 11 targets. So how far are we at in SDG 11? Well, according to the SDG Index and Dashboards report, no country in the world has completely achieved the target set forth in SDG 11. More progress has been made in developed regions such as North America and Europe, while much of Africa is stuck with major challenges to overcome. On a brighter note, approximately 75% of the solid waste generated by cities around the world is being collected and managed. Processes to create a circular economy management of such materials is still a distant reality, but as the collection numbers rise, better processing systems can also be implemented. Here's how COVID-19 is affecting SDG 11 through lockdowns, crowded areas, and restricted movement. The COVID-19 pandemic has added unprecedented challenges for cities, including pressure on healthcare, education, job security, and disproportionately affected vulnerable groups. The data from UN Habitat COVID-19 Response Plan showed that 1,430 cities in 210 countries were affected, and 85% of these COVID-19 cases happened in urban areas. Billions of people were told to stay at home as a preventive measure. However, around 1.8 billion people, or more than 20% of the world's population, lack adequate housing, including around 1 billion of them living in informal settlements or slums. Meanwhile, 24 billion people lack access to clean water and sanitation. Social distancing and access to adequate and clean water and toilets elude these communities. Many slum residents work outside the formal sector with unstable incomes, minimal savings, and no social protection, hence lost their livelihoods as cities shut down. Overcrowding and lack of hand washing facilities can result in the rapid spread of the virus. The impact of COVID-19 will be most devastating in poor and densely populated urban areas, especially for the 1 billion people living in informal settlements and slums worldwide. UN Habitat has moved ahead quickly with implementing emergency projects in 13 countries with community preparedness, outreach and hygiene support in addition to the realignment of some projects at the country level for the immediate emergency response. UN Habitat's integrated response consists of 3 types: health response, humanitarian response, and socio-economic response, all of them leveraging on experience, expertise, and partnerships to deliver solutions. UN Habitat is focusing on 3 major response areas to tackle COVID-19 and its impact in different urban contexts and types of communities. This is done through, first, supporting local governments and community-driven solutions in informal settlements. Secondly, providing urban data evidence-based mapping and knowledge for informal decision-making. And lastly, mitigating economic impact and initiating recovery. As the world is dealing with one of the most challenging periods in modern times, it is evident that science, technology, and innovation (STI) is the key to providing critical and indispensable tools to help overcome the current situation as well as to prepare ourselves against future pandemics. Every aspect of SDG 11, when you really examine implementation needs and barriers, calls for corresponding technological solutions. New ways of gaining and processing data, utilizing open source mapping platforms, and generating powerful data visualizations are already empowering communities to be more resilient. These tools can be further used to prepare cities and communities to better serve residents amid the pandemic. Digital technology can also be used to establish systems for quick and efficient data sharing. A positive aspect of the response to the COVID-19 outbreak has been the extensive international cooperation of the data sharing. The UN Commission on Science and Technology for Development (CSTD) has consistently emphasized that technological change is essential to achieving all the SDGs. The ongoing response to the COVID-19 pandemic provides daily examples on how harnessing frontier technologies can make the difference between life and death. However, despite the well-documented advantages that frontier technologies offer in solving a vast range of problems, for many people around the world, their benefits remain a distant prospect. Scaling technologies so that everyone, including the most vulnerable in our global community, can benefit from affordable and unrestricted access requires a coordinated approach to initiating global cooperation for scientific advancement and resource mobilization. International collaboration in STI is urgently needed in 3 areas: research cooperation, capacity building, and official development assistance to ensure that emerging technologies are developed with inclusiveness and sustainability in mind.